Hello everybody, I am bringing you section 1.5. Today we're going to talk about radicals and rational exponents. So what you need to know is what a radical is and what a rational exponent is. First thing I want you to know is rational equals fractional. Okay? When something has a rational exponent, it is an exponent that's a fraction. So first thing, we got to talk about the nth root. You guys are used to square roots. Like this, square root of 25 is 5. Today, we're going to let that number under the radical be a, because it's going to be any number. And we're going to talk about the nth root of a number. Okay? The nth root of a number can be any root. So for example, we could have the cube root. The cube root of 8 is 2. That means 2 was raised to the third power to give you 8. So today we're working backwards and we're figuring out what was raised to a certain power to give you the number you're looking for. The radical is this part. That's a radical. Basically, any radical, any square root is called a radical. And the index of the radical is whatever root you're trying to take. That is the index. Okay? So, nth root can be the cube root, it can be the fourth root, fifth root, whatever. The radical, and then the index. Okay, nth roots can be written as powers. For example, if you have the square root of a number, that can be written as a to the 1/2 power. Whatever the index is, so this one has an index of 2. Whatever the index is goes in the denominator of the rational exponent. So this one's a cube root, so this can be written as a to the 1/3 power. This one's a fourth root, this can be written as a to the 1/4 power. Whatever the denominator is, that is the index, and vice versa. Okay, we've got some rules about the types of answers that you're going to get. Okay? So, now remember, n is all your indexes. Okay? So this is nth root of a. So if your radical, if your index is an odd number, okay, then a, the number under the radical, has one real root. So for example, if you have the cube root of 8, that is only going to be 2. Okay, because to give you 8, there's only one way you can multiply 3 of the same number to get you 8. If n is even and the number under the radical is greater than 0, then a has 2 real roots. So for example, if you have the square root of 25, that is an even index. Remember, n is the same as your index. Technically, you could have 5 or -5, because 5 times 5 is 25, and -5 times -5 is also 25. Okay, it doesn't work like that for the top one there. you would actually have to take the cube root of -8 to give you a -2. But the only way to take the cube root of 8 and get 2, where they're all the same number, is if you go 2 times 2 times 2. If you wanted to take this cube root of -8, that's -2. Because -2 times -2 is the same as 4, times -2 gives you that -8. If n is still even, but the number under the radical is 0, then a has one real root, and it's going to be 0. Because it doesn't matter what... Oh, wait, we have an even one. So if we take the fourth root of 0, you're always going to get 0. If n is even, remember that's the index, and a is less than 0, then a has no real roots. So you cannot take the square root of -25. Because the only ways you can get -25 is if you go -5 times 5. And you can't take the square root of something and have two different numbers. It's got to be the same number. Okay? If the index is odd, there's going to be one root. It's even, and a is bigger than 0. That means there's two real. Odd index means that it's going to have is an even index with a greater than 0. That means there's two real roots. If it's less than 0, so -16, there are no real roots. Okie dokie, we're going to find the indicated real nth roots of a. So this one, nth root of -27. Okay, we have an odd number, so that means according to real root. So let's figure out what it is. You can put these in your calculator, or you can kind of factor it out here. So -27 kind of split up, could be -9 or 3. -9 could be the same as -3 times 3. So that's one way to do it. Now, you have a few options with all those negatives. That's the thing. They do have to all be the same number, though, because you can't take the cube root of something and have it be 3 different numbers or 2 different numbers even. So in order to get -27, they're either going to be all negative or all positive. And if it's a negative, your answer is going to be a negative there. So you can just go ahead and make it negative. I know it doesn't really fit this way, so that would be a +9. So, yeah, whatever you split up your factors, and then whatever you get, it's either going to be all positive or all negative. Because -3 times -3 is 9. 9 times -3 is -27. So, the indicated real nth root, we are finding a cube root. So we are looking for 3 of the same number. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to take one representative from that group. -3. Let's do this one. This one's the fourth root of 16. So, 4 roots. So let's split it up. 16 can split into 4 and 4. 4 can be 2 and 2. Okay, so let's kind of test it. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. So one answer is 2. Because we have a fourth root, so we're looking for 4 of the same number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This also holds true if we list -2. Because -2 times -2 gives you 4. 4 times -2 gives you a -8. -8 times -2 gives you a +16. So in this one, we're going to have 2 or -2. In this one, it's just -3. And again, this can go in your calculator. Totally can. So I will have a video about where to find that. Just not tonight. 1 root. I can't do that. Okay, let's evaluate each expression. So we have a cube root, so it's an odd index root, and it's negative, so that means everything kind of has to be negative. So -8 could be -4 times -2. Actually, it'd be 4 times -2. We'll leave your smaller number that doesn't break down anymore as the negative. Okay, then 4 is -2 and -2. So we have a cube root, that's a 3, and we have 3 of the same number. So my answer is -2. Okay, this one is kind of similar, except the number under the radical, that 8, is a positive. So we are looking for what you could split that up into and get a positive 8. So, excuse me, long weekend, holy cow. Okay, so we're going to split up that 8. My cats are running like crazy around the house. Okay, so 8 is 4 and 2. And it's a positive 8, so the 2, the smallest number that doesn't break down anymore, I'm just going to leave that as a positive. If 8 was a negative, I would make that 2 a negative. And then 4 changes into 2 and 2. Holy cow, crazy kitties. So we have a cube root, and we are looking for 3 of the same answer. So that means I take one representative from that group of 3, and then we had a negative on the outside. So that one's another -2. Okay, this one, we're going to change that back to a radical, because right now it's just a little easier to work with. So 16 to the 1/4 power is the same as the 4th root of 16. And 4th root, we kind of already did that one, but we can, do it again. So 16 breaks down into 4 and 4, and 4 breaks down into 2 times 2. So we want a 4th root, so I look for 4 of the same number, and there are 2 options. You're either going to take your final answer and make them all positive or make them all negative, okay? So one way to multiply the same small number together and get 16 is with 2's. The other way is if you have -2's. -2 times -2 is 4. 4 times -2 is -8. -8 times -2 is positive 16. So we have either or. Okay, now check out this guy. This is going to be a 4th root of a -16. Wah, wah. So your answer would be no solution or no real roots. Okay, so you would say that, and then we will talk about how to get that later. Okay, so after this one, okay, sometimes you're going to have radicals that have a numerator that is different than 1. Okay, so if you have some sort of a rational exponent, my baby just woke up, no, then the idea is you're going to pull out the radical on the bottom, and that's going to be whatever your square root is. So you're just going to change that numerator to a 1. And then whatever your numerator is goes on the outside there. Okay? So that means if you have, let's say we have 27 to the 2/3. That means we're going to change that 2 to a 1. And then move that exponent in the numerator to the outside. So this problem is going to turn into the square root. Sorry, not the square root. Silly teacher. The root is the fractional one. It's going to be the cube root of 27, and then we square it. So if I figured that out, I would factor that down. 27 is 9 times 3. 9 is 3 times 3. Oh, there's 3 3s, and it's a cube root. So that means the cube root of 27 is 3. And then we have that square on the outside. So this would be 9. So you're going to go piece by piece and break it down. Okay, so in this one, we're going to take the denominator and keep that there. So this changes to 16 to the 1/4 power. And whatever the numerator is always changes to 1. And then that numerator goes on the outside of the parentheses. And then we're going to evaluate what is 16 to the 1/4 power, or the fourth root of 16. So let's break down 16. 16 can be 8 times 2. 8 can be 4 times 2. And 4 can be 2 times 2. So I have a fourth root. I'm going to look for 4 of the same number. So the fourth root of 16 is just 2. And then 2 to the third power is the same as 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Very good. Now, here's my question. Could you do that with a negative? And you sure could. You sure could. Remember, if you're dealing with an even index, then your answer could be either all positive or all negative. So in this case, if you broke it down, then we just take the lowest breakdown and make them all negative. So you'd have negative 2 to the third power. And then negative 2 to the third power gives you negative 8. Okay, let's do the next one. Teacher's getting sleepy. Okay. Now the next one, according to the property, we're going to take the numerator and turn it into a 1. And then whatever the numerator was, we're going to pull on the outside of the parentheses. So then 27 to the 1/3 is the same as the cube root of 27, which has 1 real root, according to our rules before. 27, if I split that up, I get 9 times 3. And it's all positive, so I don't have to make anything negative. And then 3 times 3. I look for 3 of the same number. So that's 3, and then I change it to that 3. And then I got to raise 3 to the 4th power, which will be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So I'm actually going to get 27 times 3. Again, seems excessive, but... So 27, so we get 81. Now again, all of this you can put in a calculator. You would just have to use the nth button, and I'll do my best to describe how to find it. Otherwise, I will include a video of how to find it. Okay, so we got a little real life problem here. I don't know how real life this is, but we're going to go with it. Okay. So we have a sphere. The radius of a sphere is the measure from the center to the outside. The radius of this sphere is given by this crazy equation. 3 times the volume over 4 pi raised to the 1/3 power, where V is the volume. Find the radius of this sphere to the nearest foot. So we're just going to use this information and plug it into the problem. So the volume is 113 feet. So we're going to replace the volume with 113. And they want us to use 3.14 for pi. So now this you could put in your calculator, but, which I'm definitely going to do. I'm going to try and describe it as best as I can. Maybe I can look up a picture of the right one. So we're going to go 3 times 113, which is 339. And then 4 times 3.14, and that's 12.56. And then I'm going to go 339 divided by 12.56. And we actually get 26.99. And then we got to raise that to the 1/3 power, or, which is the same as the cube root of that top. Okay, so that's actually on your calculator. And if we looked up a picture of a scientific calculator, let's change it to a TI. Yep, that's this one. So I've got the image of it. I just want to see the picture. Okay. Just zooming in. Okay, so where we find that cube root button is we actually, if you look on the keyboard next to the 7, there is a x squared button. And in green above it is a square root. Above that is the little raise to the power button. And up above here is the nth root button. That's this one. This is the one you need. But because the thing that you need is in green, you're going to have to go to the way top. And you're going to hit that second button first. Okay, so there's a green second button. You're going to hit second. And then you're going to hit this little raise to the power thing. And then once you do that, actually before you do that, if you're looking for like the cube root, you're going to hit 3. And then you're going to hit second. And then the little raise to the power button. And then your radical's going to show up, and then you can type in whatever's in the radical. So in this case, we would hit a 3 because we have a cube root. We're going to hit second, and then that little radical symbol, and we're going to take it of 27.99. Now, I do not have one of those calculators here tonight, so I won't be doing it that way, but I'm going to, on my calculator, take 26.99, and I'm just going to raise it to the 1/3 power. You actually get 2.99, which rounds up to 3. And I always say 3.0 whenever there's a decimal. All right, that is all I got for this lesson. You might have trouble with this one. You might not. But either way, you're going to ask questions. And you're going to check the answer key. And then you're going to email your teacher if you're still confused. Thank you, guys.